Okay, today's video is solving equations with justifications, and this is something that we already know how to do. So you can see there's no note slide today because you've already learned all the notes that you need for this lesson. It's a combination of the first three. So in the first lesson we learned about distribution. In the second lesson we learned about the additive property of equality and the subtraction property of equality. And in the third lesson we learned about the multiplication property of equality and the division property of equality. And then we're going to go ahead and write this S here. So what we're doing here is the equations solve step by step, and we're just providing an explanation or a justification for how they went from the first to the second, and the second to the third, and the third to the fourth, and the fourth equation to the fifth equation. So if you're looking at the top one, we know that the first one's always going to be given to us, so we're just going to type in G for given, and I should put this one down here too. And this S right here just means when they simplify, we're going to use an S. So how did they go from this first equation to this second equation? Well, I'm just going to look to see what's different. So the 183 on the left side stays the same. This 1 right here stayed the same. And it looks like the parentheses are now gone, and the numbers inside the parentheses have changed to these numbers. So it looks like they must have taken this -7 and multiplied it into the parentheses to get 35 and 28. So what is that property called when you multiply through the parentheses? We know that that is distribution. So from the first to the second they distributed. Well, what about from the second to the third? So it looks like 183 is the same. Looks like this 1 is gone, and this 28 is now gone. The -35x has stayed the same. So they must have done something with this 1 and -28. Looks like because they're like terms, they must have combined them to get a -27. And if you subtract 1 minus 28, and I'm just going to check to see if that's 1 minus 28, that gives us a -27. So we know that that's what they did to go from the second to the third equation. So because they're combining like terms, all we have to put is simplify. So we're just going to type in S for that. Now from the third to the fourth equation, it looks like the 183 changed to a 210, and the -27 is now gone. This stayed the same, so they must have added, and I'm saying added because the number is being subtracted, or it's a negative, to both sides. And I guess if you add 27 to 183, you get 210. So if you add a number to both sides of the equation, we know that that's the additive property of equality. And now the last one, from the fourth equation to the fifth equation, what did they do? Well, it looks like all the numbers have changed, so they somehow eliminated this number in front of x. So it was being multiplied, so they must have divided both sides by -35. And if you divide here, you probably get a -6. So we know that if you divide both sides, it's the division property of equality. So first equation is given to us. So how are they going from the first equation to the second equation? It looks like this stays the same, this stays the same. The parentheses are now gone, so they must have multiplied through. We know that that is distribution. How do they go from the second to the third equation? It looks like 146 stays the same. There was 3 terms here, now there's only 2. This stayed the same. So they must have combined a -4 and a +6 to get a +2. If they're combining, we know that they're just simplifying. So how did they go from the third equation to the fourth equation? Well, it looks like there was 2 terms here, and the number from 146 to 142 changed. So they must have eliminated the -2 or the +2 by subtracting 2 from both sides. And if you subtract 2 from both sides, you know that the property they're using is the subtraction property of equality. Now the last one, from the fourth equation to the fifth equation, looks like the number in front of x, which was being multiplied, is now gone, and 144 went to 4, so we know that they must have divided both sides by 36. If you divide both sides by 36, you know that it's the division property of equality. Last example for today's video. Here we have the first equation. We know it's given to us. Looks like from here to here, they've dropped the parentheses, so they must have multiplied through. We know that's distribution. there's two terms, one term. It looks like the term that they eliminated was 36. We know that if they eliminated 36, they've got to subtract it from both sides. We know that property is called the subtraction property of equality. And then, how do they go from here to here? It looks like they eliminated the number in front of x, which was being multiplied, so they must have divided both sides by a negative 36. Negative, negative, positive. So we know that if they're dividing both sides by a number, it's the division property of equality. So all you're doing for tonight's homework is looking at the equations step by step and giving a reason for what they did. Good luck.